For so many of us, Lois Lowry's Number the Stars was our very first introduction to the Second World War. But this book, it's so much more than just a story we read as kids. It's a window into one of the most remarkable and frankly hopeful events of that entire dark period. So, let's dive into the incredible true story that brought this novel to life.
You often hear the book called a gentle introduction to the Holocaust, and there's a really good reason for that. See, instead of focusing on the unimaginable horror of the concentration camps, it tells the story of successful resistance. It's about hope. It's about a community that actually stood up and protected its own. This makes the whole subject accessible, especially for younger readers, because it tells a story from the perspective of the helpers.
And this number right here, this is the heart of the whole thing. 95%. That is the percentage of Denmark's entire Jewish population that was rescued in a single month, October 1943. While the rest of Europe was descending into chaos, more than 7,200 people were smuggled to safety. I mean, just think about that. It's an absolutely mind-boggling figure.
So, the big question is, how? How on earth did this happen? How was this amazing feat even possible when so much of the continent was consumed by darkness? Well, it wasn't some simple miracle. It was a combination of very unique historical circumstances and just incredible, everyday courage. To really get it, we have to rewind a bit.
To understand the rescue, you first have to understand the world that Annemarie Johansen is living in at the start of the book. From 1940 to 1943, Denmark was under this very strange, peaceful occupation, which even earned it the nickname of a model protectorate.
Okay, so here's how it went down. On April 9, 1940, Germany invades. Denmark, knowing it's totally outmatched, surrenders almost immediately to avoid being destroyed. This led to this weird reality where the Danish king and the government were actually still in place, running most of the country's day-to-day affairs. For 3 years, this created this fragile sense of normalcy, but that all started to fall apart in the summer of '43, which led to Germany finally dissolving the government. And that changed everything.
I mean, the difference between Denmark and other occupied countries was just stark. Elsewhere, anti-Jewish laws were slammed into place almost immediately. But in Denmark, the government flat out refused. There was no mandatory yellow star, no property confiscation, no ghettos. Danish Jews were just Danish citizens. And this is so crucial to understand because it meant that the sudden threat in 1943 felt like an attack on all Danes.
And that fragile, protected peace, well, it was about to be shattered. The events of late 1943 would thrust the people of Denmark, both the real people and the characters in the book, into a sudden, terrifying crisis.
The second Germany dissolved the Danish government, that final layer of protection was just gone. With the Danish leadership pushed aside, the Nazis were finally free to implement their final solution. And the SS general in charge, Werner Best, immediately started drawing up plans for a secret roundup of the entire Jewish population.
This direct threat sparked a massive shift in the country. For years, the Danish Resistance had been pretty passive, giving German soldiers the cold shoulder, singing patriotic songs. But after August 1943, it completely transformed into a nationwide mobilization, a widespread, active, courageous effort with one single goal: save their fellow citizens.
So how did they do it? How did an entire nation manage to pull this off? Let's break down the anatomy of this incredible rescue effort.
Okay, so it essentially happened in 3 key stages. First, the warning. A German diplomat, a guy named George Ferdinand Duckwitz, risked his own life to leak the secret plan for the roundup just days before it was supposed to happen. Second, the mobilization. That warning spread like wildfire, and thousands of ordinary Danes, doctors, pastors, regular neighbors, started hiding Jewish families in their homes, in churches, in hospitals. And third, the escape. An entire fleet of fishing boats started secretly ferrying people across the narrow strait of water to neutral Sweden. And this is where it gets so fascinating, seeing how Lois Lowry wove real history right into her story. That illegal newspaper Annemarie's sister was involved with, totally real. The fake funeral for Great-Aunt Bertie to gather refugees, based on real tactics. And get this, what about that drugged handkerchief used to fool the Nazi dogs? Incredibly, that is also true. The resistance actually worked with Swedish scientists to create a powder from dried rabbit's blood and cocaine that would first attract the dogs and then totally numb their sense of smell. It's just amazing.
But, as inspiring as this story is, the real history was, as it always is, a little more complicated. It wasn't quite a simple fairy tale of heroes and villains.
The reality is that this rescue was possible because of a unique set of circumstances.
For example, it seems some German officials on the ground in Denmark deliberately looked the other way. And while many fishermen were true heroes, some others demanded huge amounts of money for the dangerous trip. Now, acknowledging these things doesn't take away from the incredible bravery of thousands of Danes. It just helps us understand the specific, complex conditions that made this singular event possible.
All right, so we've looked at the historical how. Now let's get to the novel's thematic why. Because at its heart, Number the Stars is really a deep exploration of what it actually means to be brave.
The novel is a classic Bildungsroman, which is just a fancy term for a coming-of-age story. We watch 10-year-old Annemarie go from a little girl who is scared and just wants things to be normal to a young woman capable of incredible courage. Her personal journey from innocence to responsibility is a perfect mirror for Denmark's own national awakening during that time.
And this line right here from Uncle Enric is maybe the central thesis of the whole book. It's such a powerful idea. Bravery isn't about not being scared. Annemarie is terrified during her run through the woods. Courage is feeling that fear and doing it anyway because you know it's what you must do. And the book is brilliant at showing that bravery isn't just one thing, it's a whole spectrum. You've got the quiet courage of a mother protecting her kids, the high-risk courage of a resistance fighter like Peter, and even the innocent courage of little Kirsty, who isn't even old enough to understand the danger. The novel makes heroism feel accessible, like a choice that ordinary people can make, not something reserved for soldiers and spies.
So what's the lasting message here? What's the legacy of this book and the history it shares? Well, it all comes down to one powerful metaphor: the bodyguard.
This is the verse from Psalms that Peter reads during that incredibly tense fake funeral scene, and it's where the book gets its title. At first, Annemarie just thinks about the huge, overwhelming number of stars in the sky. But the meaning is so much deeper. In the context of the Holocaust, where the Nazis tried to dehumanize their victims by tattooing them with numbers, this idea is the ultimate act of resistance. It says that every single person is known, is named, and is precious. It's a powerful counterargument to an ideology built on hate and erasure.
And that brings us right back to the central idea. Early in the book, Annemarie's father says that all of Denmark must be the bodyguard for its Jewish citizens. The rescue, that was the ultimate fulfillment of that promise. It was an act of a collective, an entire society choosing to use its safety to protect its most vulnerable neighbors.
The story of Number the Stars isn't just a history lesson. It turns that history into a personal challenge. It leaves us with a question that echoes just as strongly today. In our own lives, in our own communities, when we see injustice, when is it our turn to be the bodyguard?